Hey, good morning, everyone. So great to see all of you. A lot of new faces. I'm Pastor Adonia. My husband and I are the pastors here, and we're happy to welcome you, and hopefully you get something out of this message, but even more importantly, you really feel God's love in our community and in your life being connected to our community. So today I want to talk about maturing in our faith, so spiritual maturity. And I actually was, when Mike was giving his message last week, the last month or so, we've just been kind of riffing off of each other's messages. And he was sharing the story of the prodigal son last Sunday. And when I was listening to it, actually, last Sunday we watched this reenactment, like a video of the story. And I realized as I was watching it that I had changed from the last time I had heard this story. And I was like, oh, this is a good sign. Like something in me has grown and matured since the last time. And so I actually want to share the story again. Last time we watched it, this time I'm going to read the verses, and then I'll kind of go from there. So this is the story, Parable of the Lost Son from Luke. Jesus continued, "There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger one said to his father, 'Father, give me my share of the estate.' So he divided his property between them. Not long after that, the younger son got together all he had, set off for a distant country, and there squandered his wealth in wild living. After he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in the whole country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. He longed to fill his stomach. Oh, sorry, that's supposed to say food. With the food that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. When he came to his senses, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have food to spare? And here I am, starving to death. I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants.' So he got up and went to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. The son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his servants, 'Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' So they began to celebrate. Meanwhile, the older son was in the field. When he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked him what was going on. 'Your brother has come,' he replied, 'and your father has killed the fattened calf because he has him back safe and sound.' The older brother became angry and refused to go in. So his father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, 'Look, all these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders. Yet you never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours, who has squandered your property with prostitutes, comes home, you kill the fattened calf for him.' 'My son,' the father said, 'you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad, because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.'" So, as Mike mentioned last week, many times the focus is on the prodigal son. the son who is lost, who strayed, who is like in the story of the shepherd with the 99 sheep and will go after the one. Like, it's the one who comes back. But that's not the whole point of the story, otherwise it wouldn't be the second part about the older son, right? And I have to say, my whole life, when I hear this story, I have always felt so bad for the older son. I would feel that struggle and feel that like pain and lack of love every time. I feel like, so here's the reality. I'm an older sister and I have a younger sister. And I realized that I resonate very much with this story. I used to get so upset because my little sister would ask, she was always asking for things from my parents and getting them. The little, even from the time she was like 5 or 6, like the little kid nail polish. You know, she'd want the nail polish in the store, and my parents would buy her for it. I'm like, that's so frivolous. And then even up until the time she was like in her 20s, I remember once for her birthday, she was like, I really want this nice hiking backpack. It's like $225. And my parents got it for her. And I was already almost 30, and I was like, how dare she ask for something that costs so much? And I felt like, in a way, I was considering my parents' situation more than my sister. I was thinking of their financial situation. Although, if I'm really being honest, I think I was a little bit traumatized from a time I was like 4, and I asked for something. My parents were like, we don't have money for it. And I've kind of just carried that for a very long time. Like, we can't spend money on frivolous things. And from that point, I just wouldn't ask for things, even if I did want them. So in a way, I felt like I was the filial daughter here. I was considering the whole in my family's situation and seeing from their point of view financially. But now I realize that there was something that I wasn't considering, which was my parents' love for my sister. There were things that she was just a different person from me. You know, she struggled with things that I didn't struggle with. She felt love in ways that I didn't necessarily feel love. And now, as a parent with children of very different characters, I realize you can love your children 100%, all of them. The love is not different. But the way that you need to express it to them varies. And needs to be adjusted based on their personalities. So just for full disclosure, my sister and I have talked about this. We've cleared this up. I wouldn't be sharing this if I was still angry at her. You never know what she might watch. But the funny thing is, my sister is now my favorite person to buy presents for. I absolutely love buying her gifts. I was at one of these like children's business fairs a few months ago, the one in Colorado Springs that got rained out. And one of these kids was like a painter, and did beautiful paintings of these variety of mushrooms. And my sister and I love foraging for mushrooms. It's like one of our we always talk about it. And I was like, oh, there's the one that we like to forage. And they weren't just like fanciful. They were all like botanically accurate. And I was like, oh my gosh, my sister would love this. I would like spend anything to get it for her because I know she would love it. So I realized that something in me has changed. But so now, when Mike was sharing the story of the prodigal son last week, I recognize, like before it even got to the part of the older son, I recognize something in me has changed because I get this now. If the son was spiritually mature, if he was really united in heart with his father, he would have been devastated when his brother left. And not only that, he would be so acutely aware of how his parents would have spent many sleepless nights wondering if their son was still alive. Thinking, what did I do wrong? Could I have done anything different? Should I have done anything different? The turmoil that his parents had been in this whole time his brother was gone. And he would have felt that same anxiety and desire for his brother to return. And if that's where his heart had been, he would have been as overjoyed, if not more, for the sake of his parents when his brother returned. So I relate with this story because on many levels, the older son was the good one, right? He was responsible. He listened to his parents. He was wise in some ways to not squander his wealth. But he was lacking in love and understanding, or this spiritual maturity. Ultimately, he was missing the heart connection with his parents. And of course, this story is not just a family story in the Bible. This is a parable. A parable is something simple to illuminate something greater, right? So ultimately, this story is about our relationship with God. And I feel like that we are like this older son so many times. But maybe especially as faithful people, right? We feel like we're the ones who know God. We've read the Bible and the divine principle. Maybe we've made good choices. We feel how we've avoided many bad things. We didn't fall prey to the distractions and temptations of the world. And of course, that's good. We're glad you're here. But it doesn't mean that we're done or that we've somehow made it, arrived. We need to continue to grow in our heart and spiritual maturity. So spiritual maturity is not just obedience. It's not just an intellectual or theoretical understanding. It's not even something we can just understand and then do because we understand it. It actually goes much deeper than understanding. It goes into our heart. Spiritual maturity is living in a way that God would live with a physical body because we know God's heart. Not just following laws and doing things or not doing things we shouldn't do, but without even being told, because we know God's heart, because we see with God's eyes, because we love with God's love, we do the thing that God would do. And I feel like that this is something that is not really talked about so much in most spiritual traditions. It's really like next level. Even in the song, I chose this song and I really liked how it's like we need to live by faith. Like we need to act according to our faith. We need to love according to our faith. But it's not actually just by faith, by like a trust. Ultimately, it comes from a deep resonance with God, not just a blind faith, but I get you, God. And because of that, I'm going to live a certain way. So I found a really great example. Actually, our true parents, Reverend and Mrs. Moon, talk about this all the time, about what it means to be a filial child to God, and to really understand God. So I found this speech called "Filial Children of God are Patriots Who Strive to Liberate His Heart." And so I took some excerpts from it that I'm going to share with you. In all of history, no one has understood with certainty God's circumstances or God's heart. For God, nothing was more precious than to have flesh and blood counterparts who could share his true love. God would not have traded his beloved children for the entire universe. His sorrow upon losing them was as equal to what it would have been had he lost the entire creation. He felt that his entire purpose for creating the universe had collapsed. He became a God whose enemy unjustly robbed him of his cosmic throne. The fact that God invested his love so completely, in keeping with the principles of absolute faith, absolute love, and absolute obedience, only made the results of the fall even more devastating. God was plundered of his ideal, plundered of his beloved son and daughter, and plundered of his sovereignty over the cosmos. God's inmost heart is broken as he surveys human beings struggling, leading lives of no value, having lost the glorious value with which they were originally created. God cries out in grief and agony, saying, "You are supposed to be my direct lineal children, possessing my love, my life, and my lineage. You should be enjoying all the glory of the kingdom of heaven. My heart is grieved to see you wearing the mask of the defeated, struggling in pain, lamentation, and despair." You will not read about God in this way anywhere else. How are we to resolve this grievous situation? The only way is to carry out a movement practicing the love that is God's original essence. The final stage of religion must teach in detail about God's pitiful suffering and injustice, and it must connect us to the world of his original heart. So I feel like, there is a lot you could associate with our faith. There's a lot of organizations. There's a lot of aspects that people focus on. There's so many speeches and things that we could read. But really, the essence of it comes down to this. It's that our true parents touched this heart of God. I read this, actually, it's in the same speech. True Father says, when he got this, he cried for weeks. He couldn't stop for like 2 weeks because nobody had ever told him, nobody could show him, but it's through a direct experience of God's heart that convicted him. So this is really the essence of our faith, where everything comes from, where all of our understanding of the principles of restoration, the value of the blessing, our practical life of faith guidance, all originate from this, as a child, understanding our parents' heart. Understanding what God's original ideal was. What is, as it said here, you should be enjoying all the glory of the kingdom of heaven. Right? That's God's original ideal, is you should be living in this with me. So, understanding God's ideal, understanding the reality. Sometimes we get so used to, this is how life is. But this is so far removed from what God created us to be and created us to experience. And then the practical essence of our faith is like, well, how do we bridge that gap, right? Where we are from where God's goal for us is. It all comes from this understanding. So the point of this is that spiritual maturity is not just believing, or a lot of people in Christian understanding is like once you accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior, then you did it. But that's not where it ends. That's the beginning. And then it's a walk with God. It's a journey with God in growing, learning how to step out in faith, right? Learning how to live by faith, walk by faith, see by faith, but eventually getting to the point where it's not just like me understanding, oh, my parents, that like this is our financial situation, so this is where we have to be at. That's kind of almost like it's like a small faith. But getting to a point where actually I understand my parents' heart. I understand what God is trying to do in this world, and I am convicted and empowered to live my life a certain way because of that. Walking by faith, seeing by faith, living by faith is like a stepping stone and part of growth. But when we really know the fullness of God's love for us and for everybody else in this world, when we know the ideal, where we're going, and at least a little bit of how to get there, then we don't just step out in faith. It's stepping out with deep conviction and understanding because it's like, I know. I shared a few weeks ago that for me, a transformative part of my life of faith was I was worried about how will I know that I won't leave God, because I've seen many people forget or leave or lose conviction, and I didn't want to be one of those people, but I didn't know how. They didn't think they were going to leave. How do I know I'm not going to leave? And for me, the transformative moment was understanding, like, well, the missing piece for me is that I don't actually get that God is my parent. It's still conceptual. It's still like a belief or a faith that God is my parent. But I don't actually know it yet. But when I know that God is my parent, I can never leave my mom. I can never leave my dad. So it's similar. It's connected to this. And it's in this spiritual maturity, I think that the fruits of this shows not just in our spiritual habits or our faith practice or our tithing or our the things that we accomplish in our life, but actually the real fruits of spiritual maturity come in our relationships, right? The real thing that showed whether the older son was mature in the story was his relationship with his father and his brother, and that's like the missing link. It couldn't mature. And in the same way, my relationship with my sister, I felt like I've finally matured in my relationship enough with her. When I could tell her, you know what, I've been blaming you this whole time for spending our parents' money. But I realized it's just me. And our relationship has matured. And so as you mature in your spiritual life, you'll begin to see the fruits in your physical life, but not necessarily in the money that you make or the habits that you keep. Those are like stepping stones. But in your relationship with your spouse and your relationship with your children and your relationship with your parents. So my challenge for you is to reflect, right? Where in your life is maybe restoration still needed? Or is my relationship with this person still about me, and I'm not fully seeing them from God's point of view? And keep in mind the story of a lost son. So please join me in prayer. Heavenly Parent, good morning. Thank you for such a beautiful week, a beautiful Sunday morning. We feel so much of your love through the sunshine and beautiful weather and being among all these amazing children of yours, pulled together by your purpose, Heavenly Parent. And all of us are on this path to spiritual maturity where we're learning and we're taking steps. And sometimes we take 2 steps back and take a step forward. But God, you're walking with us the whole time. You have patience with us. You understand when we're not mature, still you don't blame us. You still, just like the father in the parable of the lost son, he really stopped to meet his son where he was at and to share his heart with him. And in the same way, you want to share your heart with us, and you are ready to walk with us. You're not just waiting for us at the end, but you're really walking with us the whole way. And I'm just grateful for your unending love and compassion for us. And I pray that we can receive it, that we can remember where we're coming from and where we're going, and not just be caught or distracted or frustrated by the reality of the circumstances that we're in right now. God, you are working in our life and you are leading us closer to your ideal. And I pray that as we begin to taste that, or as we feel the blessings of that, that we can turn around and offer that to our lost brothers and sisters as well. And I offer this time, this service, this prayer to you in my name, Michael and Adonia Hendrick, a blessed family. Amen and adieu. Thank you.